In this session, we are going to learn staffing part 3. In the earlier session, we were talking about aspects of staffing, and I had mentioned that there are 3 aspects of staffing: recruitment, selection, and training. In the last part, we had completed recruitment, and in this session, we are going to start with the second aspect of staffing, that is selection. Now, selection is a process of identifying the right candidate among the number of people given to you, which means if I have pool of employees, let's say 100, out of that is 100 people have applied for the job. This is a part of recruitment. Now, out of those 100 people, I'll try to shortlist, screen, filter the best employee which can go further for further interview or selection process. So selection is the process of identifying and choosing the best person out of the number of candidates which are available for the job. Now, towards this purpose, the candidates are required to take series of employment tests and interview, which means, let's say, for example, if out of those 100 candidates who had applied for the job, if 20 get shortlisted, those 20 candidates will have to go through various tests and interview so that the organization can select the best among them. So at every stage of recruitment and selection process, at every stage, many candidates are eliminated and the best one is selected. Now, what is the process of selection? The first step or the first process of selection is preliminary screening. When we say screening, this will help the manager to eliminate all the unnecessary, unqualified, or which are unfit for the job profile which company is seeking for. Like, let's say, for example, if in an advertisement it was clearly mentioned that the company is looking for specific job profile and they had mentioned all the criteria. One of the criteria was that the person or the candidate should have at least 5 years experience in marketing. And if many people have applied who are freshers, obviously they would get eliminated. So the main objective of preliminary screening is to eliminate unqualified or unfit job seekers based on the job profile or based on the requirement of the company. So at this stage, many candidates or many applicants are eliminated and only those people who fit the job profile are forwarded. So the first process of selection is preliminary screening. The second step is test, which means the candidate, they have to go through various tests. So selection test is the second step in the process of selection. Now, an employment test is either, it's a test is a mechanism which tries to attempt to measure certain characteristics of an individual who's going to be appointed or who's going to be selected. Now, these tests can be of various types. The number of tests, one of them could be intelligence test. This is one of the important psychological tests, which we call it as an, IQ test. So it is an indicator of person's learning ability and the ability to make the decision and judgment. Like, let's say, for example, if person has cleared the IQ test with very good numbers, obviously we can judge that he would have the better ability to make decision and judgment if there is any requirement in future for that particular position. The second type of test is aptitude test. It is a measure of individual's potential for learning new skill, that how well the new person or the candidate can get acquainted in learning new skills. So it indicates the person's capacity to develop, and such tests are a good measurement or they are good indices of a person's future success score. Another type of test could be personality test. Now, this provides clues to the person's emotional, behavioral, the maturity level, and the value system of the person. So you can judge the personality of the person through personality test, But these tests are very much difficult to design because many a times it may happen that the same set of behavior is not same for all the people in similar situation, because every person would react in different situation, and sometimes in different situation the same person reacts differently. So it is very difficult to judge, design and implement this personality test. Now when we talk about the next, that is trade test, which means that it measures the existing skills of an individual as to how good they are in their proficiency area. Like, let's say, for example, if I'm recruiting a mechanical engineer, how will I test him? Obviously, I'll test him in terms of how well or how good he is with machines. So, over here in trade test, this measures the level of knowledge and the proficiency in the area of profession. So if the person is joining for technical area or technical field, he has to be tested on the basis of his technical knowledge. The next one is interest test. The name itself suggests that every individual has, you know, some amount of interest other than the job. So these interest tests are used to know the pattern of interest or involvement of a person in the other area apart from the profession or the job which he has applied for. Now, as I said, we were talking about the process, the process of selection. The first was screening, second process was test. Now, the third process in selection is employment interview, which means, like, let's say, for example, first we had called the candidates, we screened them, shortlisted them, few got eliminated, then we conducted test, few more got eliminated, now few more would get selected further for interview. So the third step is employment interview. Now this interview is a formal and in-depth conversation which is conducted to evaluate the applicant's suitability for the job. So the role of the interviewer is to get the information about the interviewee and judge and analyze whether he is matching with the requirement of the organization or not. After the interviews are being conducted, the next process in selection is checking the reference and background. See, many employers request the names and address and telephone number of, references so that they can cross check about the candidate's background or get the information about the candidate which is applying for the job. So in references, previous employers, known persons, in case of freshers, the name of the, references of the teachers or university professors, all these act as a reference. The next step in selection is selection decision. Now let's say, for example, that finally I feel that three are fitting my requirement. Now the final decision has to be made among the candidates as to, whoever has passed the test, interview and reference check. And once the selection decision is done, then the selected candidate has to undergo the medical examination, which means that medically whether he is fit to perform the particular task or job or not. So the job offer is given to the candidate after he is being declared fit after all medical examination. And after the clearance of medical examination, the job is offered to the selected applicant. So the next step in selection process is job offer to the applicant who have passed all the previous hurdles or obstacles or tests. So the job offer is made through a letter of appointment or confirm his acceptance. Now this letter generally contains a date by which the appointee must report on the duty. So the dates, the job profiles are mentioned in the job offer, and the appointee must be given reasonable time for reporting. Because, like, let's say, for example, if I get appointed and I get a job offer, I would need some time to join my company or the new company, because I have to give the notice period or serve the notice period to my previous company. So the appropriate time or the reasonable time should be given to, whenever the job offer is made to the candidate. The last one or the last step is contract of employment. Now, once the job offer is given to the candidate or the applicant, then attestation form will be valid record for future references. So there is also need to prepare the contract of the employee. So all the basic information of the employee are recorded in this contract about his job, the duties, the responsibility, the date of joining, the pay, allowance, hours of work. Everything is mentioned in the contract of employment. So these are the process of selection. So we have completed two aspects of staffing. One was recruitment, second was selection. Now let's talk about the third aspect of staffing. And the third aspect is the most important one, training and development. Training and development is an attempt to improve the current or future employee performance. Why do we train the people? So that they can give better performance, so that they can work more efficiently and more effectively. Because when they work more efficiently and effectively, it would give a rise in productivity. And that would ultimately increase the profit of the organization. Now, why training and development is important? The earlier jobs were very simple, very easy to learn. But if we talk about the rapid changes which are taking place nowadays, every employee needs to upgrade themselves, especially in terms of technical or technological knowledge. So earlier there was very little need for upgradation, but considering the present or the current scenario, it is very important that every employee has to upgrade their technological skills. So the rapid changes which are taking place during the last quarter of century in our society have created the pressure for organizations to give training, to impose more importance on training and development. Now, what are the benefits to the organization if they train particular employee or the set of employees? See, every organization is spending lots of money and they are investing, they are incurring costs so that there can be better performance. So training is a systematic learning, always better than hit and trial method, which leads to wastage of efforts and money. Now, let's say, for example, if a person is working freshly on new basis, he is not being trained. Obviously, he is working on the basis of trial and error. When I say trial and error, which means that there are possibility of wastage of resources. But if the proper training is given to the person, then there might be cut down in the cost of production because there would be less wastage of money or the other resources. So of course, it is very much beneficial to the organization because it reduces the wastages in the company. The second benefit to organization is that it enhances the employees' productivity in terms of quantity also and in terms of quality also. Like let's say, for example, if you are very much trained for 6 months, now after 6 months, you will be very good in terms of production, in terms of quantity also, and in terms of quality also, which is ultimately going to benefit the organization, leading to higher profit. Now, training, of course, equips the future manager. When the employee is trained continuously, they become specialized or master in certain area, and they can take better decision and judgment to improve the performance of the organization. So training increases, of course, the employee morale. They feel motivated. It reduces the absenteeism or labor turnover in the organization. And another benefit to organization is that it helps the employees and organization to adapt to all the changes which are taking place in the environment, be it technological environment, economic environment, or political environment, or social environment. It helps them to get adjusted to the dynamic environment in the society or the business environment. Now, what are the benefits of training to employees? When an employee is trained, he would feel motivated because his skills and knowledge are upgraded. Now he can have a better career opportunity. So these improved skills and knowledge due to training leads to better career of the individual. And increased performance of this individual will help him to get more incentives, good salary, and earn more. Training makes the employee more efficient to handle machines, which means if I'm trained, like let's say, for example, I'm a fresher to a company, I don't know how to handle machines. Obviously, I would take time to get adjusted, take few months to learn things. Now, but if I'm given training in advance as to how I have to handle machine, how I have to operate machine, what things have to be taken care of, this would of course help me or an employee to handle these machines efficiently, wherein there would be less wastage again of resources. Now, training, of course, increases the satisfaction and morale of the employee because you feel important, you feel that you are a part of organization, and that is why company or organization is spending to upgrade your skill and knowledge. So this will increase their morale. Now, when we talk about training, we know that training is beneficial, and we just saw that training is beneficial to both employer also and employee also. Now, there are certain methods of training. Training could be given either on the job, that is while working at the workplace, or it could be given off the job, that is away from the workplace. So let's see what are the training methods. The first one is on the job training. And when we talk about on the job training, there are various other on the job training. The first one is apprenticeship program. Now, under this program, a trainee is under the guidance of a master worker or a specialized worker. And these specialized worker would guide, train the apprentice or an intern. Now, these are designed to acquire the higher level of skill. So people seeking to enter skilled jobs to become, for example, let's say plumber or electrician or iron worker, they are often required to undergo apprenticeship training because they have to be trained. So the person who has mastered that work will train the other person, which is apprenticeship program. The another one is coaching. In this method, the superior or the boss guides and instructs the trainee as a coach, and the trainee works directly under the guidance of either the senior manager or manager, and he takes the full responsibility for trainees coaching. So classically, the trainee is being groomed to replace the senior manager. Like let's say, for example, if you are the senior manager in your company and two people join you or your company who are your subordinates, it is you who have to train them, guide them, instruct them, and under your guidance and instruction, they will learn how to work. So that is coaching. This coaching gives a chance for the trainee to learn the job also. The third one is internship training. See, it is a joint program of training in which educational institution and business firms cooperate. Nowadays, we can see that many universities, they get, interns or they coordinate with the business firms so that their students can be sent to the business firms or organization for a training period of, let's say, 1 month or 6 months. They train them so that they get the exposure or the practical exposure and knowledge about the performance of the job or job profile. The next one is job rotation. This kind of training involves shifting the trainee from one department to another. Now, this would obviously enable the trainee to go under the broader understanding, of all the departments. Like, let's say, for example, if one employee or one candidate is selected and he's a fresher, now that candidate is sent to each department for few days so that he can get trained or get the idea of the job and job profile of each and every department. So this enables the trainee to get a broader understanding of all the parts of business and how the organization as a whole functions. So when employees are trained by this method, the organization finds it easier at the time of promotion and replacement, or even when they want to transfer the employee. It would become very easy job for them to transfer or to replace, because they have already given the training about every department, or at least information about each department. So they have a better understanding of functioning of every department. Now let's talk about off-the-job methods. There are certain off-the-job methods. The first one is classroom lectures or conferences. Now the lecture and conference approach is very much well adapted in conveying the specific information, rules, procedures, or methods. So this type of training is given wherein the use of audio visuals or demonstrations can often make make a formal classroom and make the presentation more attractive or interesting, and give the information about all the rules or procedures or methods of the organization. The second type of off-the-job method is spins. They can provide information and explicitly demonstrate the skills that are not easily represented by the other techniques. Now, this is very visual, so the candidate or the employee would be in a better position to understand the job profile. Next one is case study. Now, trainees study the case to determine the problem or analyze the cause. Like, let's say, for example, trainee is given one particular case and asked to do the case study, and one problem or one grievance, for example, is given to them, and they have been asked to analyze and solve. Now, over here, the candidate is being trained to analyze these causes, develop the alternative solution, select what they believe and what is the best solution, and implement that plan. So this case study will allow them, or will allow the trainee to think more analytically and implement and find the solution. The next one is computer modeling. Now, it simulates the work environment by programming a computer to imitate some of the realities of the job, and also allow learning to take place without the risk or high cost that could be incurred. So if a mistakes were made in real life situation. When we say computer modeling, which means the candidate is being asked to work under this high tech, so that if any mistakes are incurred, those mistakes won't be repeated in the real life situation. Next one is vestibule training. When we say vestibule training, exact environment of the workplace is being created at the training area, which means employee learn their jobs on the equipment they will be using it at the real place. But this training is conducted away from the actual workflow, which means, like, let's say, for example, if employees to handle a particular machine at the workplace or the work floor, the same kind of machines are placed in the training room, which is within the organization, and they have to work on those machines. So this is usually done when employees are required to handle sophisticated machine and equipment. So when he gets training to operate that machine, or you can say as a demo machine or a dummy machine, so he gets trained as to how to operate. So this vestibule training will help the employee not to make any mistakes in the real workplace. So vestibule training is again given when the employee is to handle very sophisticated machines. Next one is programmed instruction. Now this method incorporates all the pre-arranged and proposed acquisition of some specific skills or general knowledge. Now information is broken into meaningful units, and these units are arranged in a proper way to form logical and sequential learning package, that is from simple to complex. So the trainee goes through these units by answering the questions and filling the blanks. Now let's talk about staffing as a part of human resource management. See, we very well know that in small organizations, Managers may perform all duties related to employees, salaries, welfare, working condition, etc. But as and when organizations grow or expand, the number of person employed increases, and a separate department called Human Resource Department is formed so that it's easy to manage the human resources or to manage people. So human resource management includes many specialized activities and duties which the human resource personnel must perform. And as we have discussed, all these duties are recruitment, selection, training, development, as we have discussed. HR department, or we can say that human resource management, it helps in developing the compensation and incentive plan. It provides training and upgrading the skills of an employee. It helps to upgrade their skills. It maintains the good labor relations with the employee, and it also acts as a liaison between the employer and employee, which means that they maintain the labor relations and union management relations. Now, human resource management, they also handle all the grievances, issues, complaints, which either lower level employee or any stage of employees are facing. Like, let's say, for example, if particular worker is having some grievance means any problem or complaint, then it is the HR or human resource management department which handles all the grievances and complaints of the workers or employees. It also provides them social security and welfare of the employee. They handle the company in lawsuits and avoid any legal complications. So they handle all the rules, regulations, procedures of the firm. Now let's talk about the evolution of human resource management. Human resource management has replaced the traditional concept of labor welfare. Earlier, every business firm used to just have a labor welfare department or a personal department, which used to act as a liaison between the employee and employer. But human resource management has taken that concept even more wider, as we had discussed that what are the areas they are taking care of. So emergence of trade union movement led to need of person who could actually act as a link between these two. And the concept of labor welfare officer came into the being. Now his role was very limited as to bear a minimum welfare activity of the employee, which means that welfare officer just used to take care of the welfare activity of the employee, and none of the other functions like recruitment or selection or training or development was taken care of. So introduction of factory systems, thousands of persons began to be employed under one roof, and the job of hiring people of the organization was given to one man, which again led to evolution of human resource management. So people came to be recognized as a valuable resource which can be further developed, and increase in the scope of work led to replacement of personnel manager with human resource manager. Because as the activities of the labor welfare, or we can say employee welfare, as it started increasing, as the scope of work increased, personnel manager was replaced with HR manager. Now, as we had discussed that staffing is one of the important part of HRM, that is human resource management. It is, of course, it helps you to find the best employee, evaluate them, establish a good working relationship with people. So staffing is therefore referred to both as a line as well as staff activity. And it is one of the essential functions of the manager as well as the advisory role played by HR department. I hope now you would be very much clear with all the three aspects of staffing, which was recruitment, selection, and training. Thank you very much.